Hmm?
Board exams.
Hmm?
15th Feb.
15th Feb. Okay. So anyway, you will be doing it all again. So we will be going into the revision sessions with you. Avani, I don't think you will be in the revision sessions. You can join later again for at least whatever you've missed. Okay, so I think with the two of you, we can begin. Hmm? So last time we had done, we were doing the para jumble sessions, our sessions, sorry. Shashwat wasn't there for the para jumble session. Do you have any idea what para jumbles are about?
Um, mm,
Hmm? Okay, so I will go on to doing some exercises so you can get to know what we are talking about. And you will go through whatever you have missed to at least so that you are not blank on it. Okay. So when we talk about para jumbles, now para completion you did. Yes, Shashwat? Hmm? Now, para jumbles are very similar to para completion questions, only that here instead of only one sentence missing in the paragraph and figuring out what that should be, here we would be required to arrange. Now, all the sentences here are given to you, nothing is missing. Only problem is they are not in the proper order, right? So, Shashwat, do you remember the strategies for para completion questions?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, what were they?
First, elimination.
Hmm.
Uh,
First is not elimination. You have to do a lot of things before you start eliminating. Hmm? So, what do you do before you start eliminating? Well, the first thing you always do, you read
the passage.
and understand it, right? So, what are you required to understand?
The context.
The context, right? So, the central theme, as we had said earlier also, right? What else do you need? Hmm? So when you are reading, first thing you figure out what it is all about. That is the central theme. Next, you have to go into understanding the flow, the information that is given to you. So if the information flow is there, if the information flow is missing, you know the sentences are not in the proper order, right? Now, in the para completion, you needed the information flow to understand what the concluding statement or the middle statement would be. Similarly, here you go with the information flow. Now, when you were doing the central theme, you also had to figure out the purpose. Hmm? Okay, Avni, what did we talk about regarding the purpose of a paragraph? So what were the different purposes? Remember, we spoke about different purposes. Would you be able to tell Shashwat? So just give him an idea of what the purpose of the paragraph means. Do you remember? Okay. Suppose I say the purpose of the paragraph is to criticize something. Yeah. So what would come first? What are you criticizing about? Yeah. And then you will be talking about the different reasons why you are criticizing. So that will be the information flow, right? Now, suppose the paragraph is about an issue. So you're discussing a problem, right? So what will be the paragraph flow? What will come first, Shashwat? Of course, the issue will come first. You are discussing an issue or a problem means you will first have to state the problem. And then you will go on to giving different reasons about different aspects of the problem, right? Okay, if you were to discuss, say, solution to a problem, then what would come first?
Problem.
Problem will come first. After that, maybe an aspect of the problem followed by solutions, right? So if you're dealing with a parajumble, what would you look at? Once you have understood the purpose of the paragraph, you will then go into the arrangement of the sentences, right? Now, if you have something like you are discussing, say, a reason to a certain issue, yeah, or maybe you are discussing a context in which there is something is the resultant of another event. So what will come first? The other event. And then the resultant event will come. Yeah. So that is what we are talking, what we will have to look at when we are talking about the purpose. Then comes the tone and style. Yeah, that will also determine, like, tone and style determine the sentences that should come in. Similarly, tone and style will determine the flow of sentences also. Topic and theme. Now, topic and theme will determine the introductory and concluding sentences. Even the tone will determine the introductory and concluding sentences. Yeah. And something that is very important are the clues. So what do you mean? What do we mean when we are talking about clues? So the linking words, yeah, the style, tone, of course, and maybe the chronology. Linking words may determine chronology of sentences. And then we come to the mandatory pairs. Yeah. So now when we were doing para completion, if there was a sentence missing in between, how did you determine what sentences will go in? A sentence that should link the previous to the previous sentence or the next sentence. So that's the strategy to develop mandatory pairs. So once you know that, okay, A goes after B, say maybe, or say you have 4 options, right? So if you have 4 options, then A, B, C, D. Now you know that A comes first and C and D go together, right? So what will you look for in the options given to you? Any option in which C and D are together will be your probable answer. Hmm? And then after you have got the C and D together, what will you do? You will see whether the introduction and conclusion is okay or not. Yeah. So mandatory pairs and linking words help you to eliminate, which is very crucial because you don't have enough time. So elimination is the key. Now, how would you determine introductory statement and concluding statement? Avani?
Introductory statement will introduce topic
Right.
and conclusion will conclude it.
Concluded or sum up the entire thing, or it could also set up another topic, right? So you are when you are looking for opening sentence and concluding sentence, you are looking for keywords. So these keywords will determine to a large extent, help you determine the introductory and concluding sentences. Okay. So this is just a sum up of the strategies we talked about earlier. Sequence words or the sequence keywords, those are important. They're the transition words. And another important strategy was general to specific. When you begin a sentence, a paragraph, it begins with a general statement, moves on to specific statements. So any specific statement is never your introductory statement. Yeah. And of course, all the time we talk about keywords and indicators. And most important, eliminate options, narrow down to the correct options, and you will get your answer. Okay. Now we'll move on to doing a few more exercises on this. So Shashwat can. So we are. We had done exercise 2. Hmm? Yeah. So I think we hadn't completed exercise 2. So this is session 15, exercise 2. You may do it from your books if you have your books. Otherwise, we can do it from here only. Right? So here's your question. Your 4 options are given to you, 4 sentences, and you have your options given to you. So can you give it a try? And then we'll discuss. Okay, another important thing that we had to take note of was when we spoke about keywords, what were the other keywords that determined whether a sentence would be an introductory sentence or will not be?
Words like does, thereafter, or
Anything else? Oh, and the articles and pronouns. If you have a pronoun, the sentence referring to the noun would come first. Anything else? Abbreviations. If you have an abbreviation, the sentence having the full form of the abbreviation will come before the abbreviation. Yeah. Okay, now you can go on with this.
BACD.
BACD. That's option C. Okay. Why do you think so? Okay, Shashwat, were you able to do this?
Yes, ma'am.
What's your answer?
BACD.
BACD. Okay, now why did you go with BACD? Did you have mandatory pay?
B was the introductory sentence.
Hmm.
So And in the options, B, A is the
Yeah,
mandatory pair.
B is the introductory sentence. It introduces the author and the book.
And in the options, B, A are together. So after A,
Hmm.
C introduce the cultural identity, something. So
So now
and
D
thus,
begins with thus.
D was like
Hmm.
conclusion of the
Yeah.
paragraph.
So C and D form the mandatory pair.
Hmm.
So if C and D form the mandatory pair and mandatory pairs in the order. Yeah, so D, C will not be your answer.
Hmm.
And nowhere else do you have D and C and D together. So immediately you are eliminating the others. Even if you don't read the or don't arrange the other sentences, you know that C and D is the only option. C has C and D together. So this you can save time by just eliminating. Let's look at question number 5. You have to look at your keywords. Now, even when simultaneously, now here it is the root cause is, that means something should come before this.
C.
C. Okay. Avni? Now, if you see Huntington's analysis explains why we are witnessing this surging antagonism among Indian and Pakistani youth and expatriates. Yeah. So this is introducing, this is the only sentence that is introducing the issue. Right? So D will always come first. Now what comes after D? Discussing the
B.
issue. The root cause is, so why we are witnessing this, Y comes in B. So D and B form a mandatory pair. So you are eliminating two options immediately. Now D and B mandatory pair, what comes after B? How did you get into what comes after B?
Because C is more like the last or just conclusion, or we can say.
Now here it says, even when it is self-willed, migration causes dislocation and or alienation, creating them. So this is another discussing the problem. Yeah, this is a specific point discussing this problem. And C is more like a conclusion. Right? So and Shashwat, did you take a guess or did you analyze?
Oh no, I analyze.
You analyze. Okay, now we come to number 6. I think you are working at a good speed. You can increase your speed further. So here what you can do is first figure out mandatory pairs. What can go together?
C, B.
C and B can go together. Okay.
D and A.
D and A in what order?
Like first D and
First D and then A. Right? Now, it may be considered country's magnet, and so the C, if you see D is a general statement. From this general statement goes into a little specific. Yeah. So this is linking to D. So D and A, D, so we can say that D comes first. So DA together and D comes first, you have only one option. Now can C, now here also D and A are coming together, but can C be an introductory statement? No. So this is eliminated. Your only answer is B. Right? So getting easier. All you have to do is work on strategy. Okay. Now in here in questions 7 to 10, okay, S1 is given to you, that the first statement is given to you, and you have to arrange the other statements. So this becomes a little easier. So here we have question number 7. Now your Egypt faced economic crisis. Now here it is beginning with what? A problem. So either you are discussing the problem after this or giving a solution, right? So what will come after the introduction then? It faced economic crisis. So either it will come up with why there was an economic crisis. So what will come up after the introduction?
S.
Hmm?
Only by means of increasing foreign trade, Egypt could survive.
Only by means of increasing foreign trade, Egypt could survive. Okay, if we say S1 and then S, we have only one option with S in the beginning, but we have to make sure that S is the sentence that comes up after this. So if you look at the others, what do we find? Does Q come after S? Once you think that, okay, this should be your answer, you have to make sure the other options are in order. Right? Now, foreign trade depends on cultivation of cotton on a large scale. That can. So this is connecting to foreign trade. Now, cotton is the chief export commodity, and it became necessary for Egypt to boost cotton crops. Now, which of these comes first? These two, of course, should come together, but in what order? If you say foreign trade depends on cultivation of cotton crops. So if foreign trade depends on cultivation of cotton crops, then boosting cotton crops would become important, right? Now, if you see, there was a time, it begins with there was a time. And if you look at P, cotton is the chief export commodity of Egypt. Now, from was a time to the solution to the problem, and then what is happening at present. So obviously P should come last. If you look at the chronological order, right? So it is SQRP. Now, even if you are not sure that S is the introductory sentence, you go into the others, you will still get your answer. Yeah. So if you see, look at this, we had R, QR forming a mandatory pair. Now here we have QR forming a mandatory pair, and here you have, even here you have QR forming a mandatory pair. But only by means of increasing foreign trade, Egypt could survive is an introductory sentence, or Q, which says foreign trade depends on cultivation of cotton on a large scale. What will be your introductory sentence? Now, if you look at P, cotton is the chief export commodity. So is this discussing the why? No. So P as an introductory sentence is eliminated. Yeah. So yes, if you are sure that S is an introductory sentence, you will go with D. If you are not sure about S, you have to analyze the other options. Now, would Q be an introductory sentence? No. Now we know that S1 and S go together. And again, we are saying that Q and R go together. So then QR going together and S coming after S1, this is the only option we have there. Right? So you want to do one more? Let's look at this one. Your introductory sentence is given. Exercising daily is a must for good health. So this is a statement. And we have to see what the other sentences are doing. Now, this talks about some cost you nothing, others may require investment of some amount of money. What is the sum and others? What is it referring to?
People,
Some cost you nothing. What costs you nothing? Maybe some methods of exercise? Now, if we look at, so what goes with Q?
S.
Hmm?
S.
It can take any form from sedentary ones like walking to vigorous workouts like a game of squash. It can take any form.
R and S.
R and S can go together, right? But now, where would S come? After whom? After which statement? It begins with it. Means, now we have a pronoun here. We need something referring to it before that. What is the it? I should be clear. Is it referring to exercising daily? right? Because if you look at the other sentences, that it is not clear. So S1, after S1, we come to S. What comes after S? Now we were looking at Q and R going together. Do they go together?
Q,
Hmm. After S, Q can come? Hmm. It can take any form from sedentary ones, like walking to vigorous workouts, like a game of squash. Yeah. So from these ones, we can come to some cost nothing, others may require investment. Hmm? So walking costs nothing, game of squash and vigorous workouts may cost something. So we can say Q comes after S. So what will come after Q? Here we're talking about cost.
T.
P is talking about amount of money. So P can come after this. What are we left with? We are left with R, right? So R is a concluding statement, begins with however. It is important to remember that now what can however do? Either it can set up a contrast or give a conclusion. Yeah. It is important to remember that exercises should not be overdone. So that could be a concluding statement, right? So what are we getting here? After the introduction, we get S. Now, obviously, if after the introduction we need S, D is our only option. But we do have to go into the reasoning of the other options so that we know that, okay, this is correct. Correct? Shashwat? Are you confused?
yes,
Hmm?
slide.
Slightly confused? So, okay, read the paragraph in this order. SQRP. Read aloud.
Exercising daily is a must good for good health. So must for good health. It can take any form from sedentary ones like walking to vigorous workouts like a game of squash.
Hmm.
While some cost you nothing, others may require the investment of some amount of money. Luckily, there is no link between the amount of money spent and beneficent exercise, else the poor would have creaking bodies. However, it is important to remember that exercise should not be overdone.
Make sense? Hmm? So what did you do? First, figure out what sentences link together, right? Any sentence that begins with a pronoun, you have to figure out what that pronoun is referring to, and it should be a clear reference. Once you have determined that, you can move on to the next sentence or the mandatory pair. So here your mandatory pair became P and R. Hmm? No link between money, or maybe Q and P. We can say Q and P became a mandatory pair. Yeah, one was talking about the cost, other was talking about the amount of money. And then R was the only sentence left, which was the concluding sentence. Hmm? Okay. Now let's try this one. Hmm? Any ideas you are getting?
R is the conclusive statement.
Or you say is the concluding statement. Okay, we place R here. Hmm. Could be. So our concluding statement, you have two options. So urban problems differ from state to state and city to city. So we are talking about urban problems. Yeah. So it is talking about a problem. So what is the purpose? If you have a problem, talking about a problem, either you will be describing the problems. Or telling us why these problems exist. So now you said, however, certain basic problems are common to all cities. Yeah. So that means this, if this is a concluding statement, then you would be talking about the problems before that. So between P, Q, and S, you will be forming a mandatory pair. I was talking about from state to state, city to city. What connects to the first statement? Now, if you look at P, most cities have neither water nor required pipelines. So, okay, we have already eliminated C and B, right? Now, if we take P as the sentence after S, and then we have the population in these cities has grown beyond the planner's imagination. Between P and Q, which is more general? Remember, we go from general to specific.
Q.
Q is more general, right? Population in these cities has grown beyond the planner's imagination. Okay. So what goes with Q?
S.
S comes
S.
first or Q comes first?
S.
S comes first. So the urban problems differ from state to state and city to city. Now, only broad macro planning was done for such cities without envisaging the future growth. And this has failed to meet the requirements. Yeah. Now, if you look at this sentence and if you look at Q, the population in these cities has grown beyond planners' imagination. Now, here we are talking about planners' imagination. It has grown beyond. While S is talking about macro planning was done, but it did not take into account the future growth. Right? As a result, what happened? So the cities have grown beyond the planner's imagination. So we can say S can come after S1. And then we can come up with Q. And most of the cities have neither water nor required pipelines. That is specific, very specific, right? So we can go with P. However, certain basic problems are common with all cities. That's a concluding statement. So we come up with D as the answer and not E. Good enough? So this is the last one from this exercise.
Ma'am, PSQR.
PSQR. That is C. Hmm. Okay. Shashwat, what do you think?
R should be the first.
R should be first. So if R is
Yes, ma'am.
first between B and D, which one?
D most.
Hmm?
D.
D. Avni, what do you think now?
Um, uh, RSPQ.
Hmm?
RSPQ.
RSPQ. Okay, let's see. It says Satyajit Ray made several films for children. And your options are Ray was thus a pioneer in this field. Later, filmmakers have followed his lead. Today, other nations are making children's films in a big way. This was a time when no director considered children as potential audience. So, made several films for children. When did he make? When no director considered making films. That makes sense. S1 and R coming after that. Hmm? Now, what comes after R? Then Ray was thus a pioneer. So nobody else did it. He was the first one to do it. So he was a pioneer. Right? So S comes after that. So now R and S, we can say R and S go together. What goes with S? He was a pioneer. Later, filmmakers followed his lead. That should be coming along with S. So S and P form a mandatory pair. What is left? Today. Today, other nations are making children's films in a big way. That is a concluding statement. You have to also make sure that yes, Q is a concluding statement. So yes, D is your answer. Got it? So this is, I think we have completed all the questions in this exercise. Let me see if I have put down all the questions. Just a minute. So now we can move on to practice exercise 3. I think this will come in session 16. This will, I think they have put it in the second volume. If you have the second volume, fine. Otherwise, we can continue from here. Um, which one is this? This is okay. Okay, so here we are on practice exercise 3. We can try these, a few more exercises. And then we will go move back to catching up on the para completion ones also. So why I'm doing this, because I know you people don't have enough time to do it for homework. Yeah. So we'll rather do it here. So you can focus on your exams then. Okay, so this is, you have 5 options here instead of 4. And you have to put them into proper order. So now something with it will not be the introductory sentence. What comes before this?
DAECB.
D, DAECB, that is option A. Okay. Shashwat, what do you think?
Yes, ma'am.
DAECB. So D is introducing the golden Kela, is held each year. Then A goes into telling you in simpler terms, what is it? Indian version of Razzies, sorry. And then it goes on to telling us when it was created, and why it was created, and then who will host the next award. Okay, good. Okay, let's look at this one. Look at the keywords to eliminate the ones which will not be your introductory sentence. Can A be an introductory sentence? No.
No.
Can be an introductory sentence?
Yes.
B can be. We may take B. C? No. D? It begins with Y. What about E? Budget has made an attempt to address all these issues. So this will come after all the issues are discussed. So the issues need to come before this. So this cannot be an introductory sentence. So we can go with D as an introductory sentence. If we go with D as an introductory sentence, we have option C. Now we can take a guess and do okay. Option C is our answer. That would save time. But here we will go into analyzing the sequence. So if D is your introductory sentence, while the budget sets a lower nominal gross domestic product growth target of 14%, we believe that the real GDP target of 9% factored in the budget is on the optimistic side. So what is it doing? It's setting up a contrast with while. The budget sets a lower minimal GDP and of 14%, but the real GDP target of 9% is on the optimistic side. So what comes after D? Now, according to this, A is after D. Does A come after D? Hmm? We are doubtful, right? Avni, are you doubtful about this? Hmm? Okay, now what determines GDP? Now it is saying that a growth of 9% on GDP is optimistic, while growth of 14% is not optimistic. So we can, after this should come something like, why is this statement given? Right? So which of these may be answering this why? Now, the three key macroeconomic concerns before the union budget were high inflation, high current account deficit, and fiscal consolidation. Does this answer? No. Or if we say B is an introductory sentence, does it make sense? Hmm? Will it make sense? Now, if you look at it carefully, the three key macroeconomic concerns before the union budget. Three key macroeconomic concerns. What can be paired with this?
Additionally, there was an expectation.
Would start reform.
No, no.
Hmm? Or would you say if you look at E,
BE.
hmm? This is quite confusing. So let's read each of these sentences to figure out what each one is talking about. Right? Despite the strong performance of the economy, the outlook for 2020 is clouded by stubborn and persistent high inflation and rising external risks. So this could be a reason for something. Hmm? Okay, let's look at this one. Hmm. The three key microeconomic concerns before the union budget 2012 were high inflation, high current account deficit, and fiscal consolidation. The three key macroeconomic concerns. What is it doing? It is introducing or bringing up maybe a concern, introducing an issue. So this could be an introductory statement. Let's see whether D would be introductory or B would be introductory. So this is raising concern. So if we take this as introductory, additionally, there was an expectation that the government would restart the reform process. Now, this is talking about expectation government would restart a reform process. So, this is talking about a solution, right? So, additionally, that means there should be something before it. Right? What will come before this, we have to figure out. While the budget sets a lower nominal gross domestic product growth target of 14%, we believe that real GDP growth target of 9% factored in the budget is on the optimistic side. So this is giving a statement that the 9% growth is too optimistic. So we should have something before it which explains this statement, or something after it which explains the statement. Okay, now let's look at DE. The budget has made an attempt to address all these issues, albeit through small steps. So addressing issues through small steps mean the issues have to come before. So we need to talk about the issues before this. So where were the issues? Where did we find the issues?
B.
Hmm?
B.
B had a problem with issues, but if we say B is an introductory statement. So among all these, which one is the most likely introductory statement?
B.
E.
B or D? Best introductory statement. It is introducing three macroeconomic concerns. It is giving us the macroeconomic concerns, right? So it is introducing a topic. Any other statement is introducing a topic? Not really, right? So if we take B as the introductory statement, we have only one option with B as introduction. So let's look at what comes after B. We introduced a problem. Yeah. Now, if we introduced a problem, then what should come after that? Now, if you look at C, it says, additionally, there was an expectation that the government would restart reform. So is this just like we thought it was a solution, but if you look at the context, the three concerns, now expectation, that is not like a solution that is there, but there's just an expectation. So that is also one of the another concern, right? So the key macroeconomic concerns before the government were this, and there was also a concern that a reform process should have begun. So we could say, yes, C can come after B. Now let's look at what comes after C. Now all these issues, what are the issues? The concerns and the reform. So D can come after C. These issues, the references there. Now, if we look at the other two, what is left? B, C, D we have taken. Now we have A and we have E. Now A says, despite the strong performance, the The outlook for this is stubborn. So this can be a reason for the optimistic, so for the optimistic view, because it says that it is more on the optimistic side. So from here we have to go into the why. Does A give us the why? Yeah, we said A is a reason for something. So A would give us the why. Now what is left? E is left. So that is a concluding statement. The budget has made an attempt to address all these issues, albeit through small steps. No, where did we put E? Not really. That wouldn't be a conclusion. All these issues we were referring to the issues that were raised here. Right? No, sorry. I messed it up. So it was B, then we came to C. All these issues comes here after C. Yeah. The budget has made an attempt to raise look at all these issues through small steps. So C and E go together, or rather B, C go together and E follows. So then we were looking at the reason. So A comes here, and why we are talking now. Here we said for D, we said either the Y will be before or after. So the Y can be before D. So finally, that should be our order. So if we begin with B, that makes sense. Right? Now, in your exam, do you have so much of time? No. So what you will do is, you look at B, you look at what comes after B, you are sure about at least 3 of them, you go with the answer. Yeah, don't spend so much of time. Now here we did analyze because that is what we are supposed to do in class. But in the exam, you can safely go with the answer where, but you have to be sure. Okay, D should be an introduction or B should be an introduction. That much you have to be sure. And how you can be sure? What comes after B? Right? Now B as a conclusion is not an answer. Right? So B as a conclusion doesn't go in. B as an introduction can go in, but does C go in as an introduction? No. So obviously B is eliminated. A is your only answer. Right? Okay, let's look at this one. I'm doing these because these are little complicated, but will give you an idea about your strategies. It begins with these. A will not be an introductory sentence. These should come before. Yeah. Now B says the first were. The earliest mince pies. So this can't be introductory. Yeah. C begins with subsequently. Can it be introductory? No, it can be concluding, but not introductory. The pudding seems to have two principal forerunners. Is this a general statement? Now here we have the first. Here the second main pudding. So first and second refers to two principal forerunners. Can D come in as your introduction? Can, right? So D comes in as your introduction. So what comes after D?
B.
Obviously B. Yeah. Then what comes after D? After B?
A.
Hmm? The
A.
first were the earliest mince pies, which saw cooked shredded meat, dried fruits, alcohol with its preservative qualities, and perhaps a few pieces of herbs, all encased in large pies. These were mainly bulk works against winter, the hoarded dregs of more plentiful seasons. Yeah, these could be referring to all these things, or the mince pies, loaded mince pies. Yeah. Now, if you look at this one, the second main pudding was a pottage or soup called frumentary, a fast dish involving cracked wheat, currants, and almonds, which was ladled out at the start of the meal. Could this be referring to these? You have two options. Does these refer to the first one or the second one? You have to make sure about that. It talks about more plentiful seasons. Now, if you look at this, this talks about a whole lot of things. So plentiful could refer to this, right? So A will come after B, followed by E and C. So even if you look at the options, now D is our introduction, so we eliminate A and B, right? So D as our introduction, A coming after D is not what is correct, right? So anyway, if you were to just do it in an exam, you would eliminate the one with A coming after D, go with the one with B coming after D, right? But if you were to analyze further, then A after A, so A will obviously come after B and not after E. Got it? So why we are analyzing is that suppose you didn't have this order given to you, or maybe DB was there in two options. Then what will come after B will determine the correct answer. Okay, let's look at this one. Quite long sentences and 5 of them. So let's read them together. Avni, can you read the first two?
In a bid to placate the associate members, the ICC has decided to increase the number of participating teams to 16 in the 2020 World Cup. As the game's governing body feels these countries will have a greater chance of competing on an equal footing in cricket's shortest format. It is convenient just now to forget that in the last edition of the tournament, considerable criticism was heaped on the governing body for the inordinate length of the tournament, thanks in large part to the presence of the associates.
So what is the first sentence telling us about as given? in a bid to placate the associate members, ICC decided to do something, decided to increase the number of teams. Yeah. So this is a solution to a problem. So the problem should come first, right? So A will not be an introductory sentence anyway. Any of the options also doesn't have A as the introductory sentence. So now if you look at B, it is a convenient just now to forget that in the last edition of the tournament, considerable criticism was heaped on the governing body. Yeah, for the inordinate length of the tournament, thanks to a large part presence of associates. So this is talking, is it related to A? Doesn't seem to be directly related to it. It's talking about criticism. Okay, Shashwat, can you read the other three?
To be fair to the ICC, criticism of the move to restrict the number of teams in the next edition of the Cup is a case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. The ICC's decision to restrict the number of teams in the 2015 World Cup was evoked mixed responses, with opinion divided among players of the full member teams. Not surprisingly, the associate members aren't too thrilled about the idea of being kept out of cricket's showpiece event.
Showpiece event, right? Okay. So this is talking about, to be fair to the criticism of the move to restrict the number of teams in the next edition of the cup is a case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. So criticism, this is talking about the criticism of restricting the number of teams. And it also goes on to, like, even if whether you restrict or don't restrict, you will be criticized. Yeah. Now, if you look at D, ICC's decision to restrict number of teams in 2015 World Cup has evoked mixed responses. So this is talking about mixed responses. Yeah. With opinion divided among players of the full member teams. So are these two related? Or something else should come in between? Okay, let's look at this. Not surprisingly, the associate members aren't too thrilled about the idea of being kept out of cricket showpiece event. Right? So here it's talking about mixed responses. Then this is talking about associate members don't want to be kept out. C is talking about that the criticism of restricting members in the next edition came up with both types of responses. B says it is convenient just now to forget that the last edition, so if we look at B, does it come as something at the end? Because it doesn't seem to be going with either B, C, or D. Or maybe C can lead to B. Criticism was heaped. So these are all talking about criticisms. Yeah. B is talking about criticism. C is talking about criticism. So what will come first between B and C? Maybe it says it is convenient just now to forget that in the last edition, considerable criticism was heaped on the governing body for the inordinate length of the tournament. So length of the tournament, increasing the number of participating teams could have led to the length of the tournament. Thanks in large to the response, a large part to the presence of associates. So we may say that this will come somewhere at the end, right? So now what do we begin with? Or maybe we could look at mandatory pairs. Now, if we look at D, in ICC's decision to restrict the number of teams into 2015 World Cup has evoked mixed responses, with opinion divided among players, with full member teams, players of full member teams. So mixed responses. What decision to restrict led to mixed responses? Okay. Now, the associate members were not too thrilled about the idea of being kept out. So restricting the number of teams would have led to some teams to be kept out. So can D and E go together? Do these form a mandatory pair in the order of D and E? Right? Okay. Now if you look at C, now we said B is out of question, comes at the end. To be fair to the ICC, criticism of the move to restrict number of teams in the next edition is a case of damn if you do, damn if you don't. So that's where does C come? Members were not thrilled. They criticized the ICC for restricting the teams. And here it says, move to restrict the number of teams in the next edition. So here we are talking about the next edition. Is a case of damn if you do, damn if you don't. So whether you do it or you don't, you are still going to be criticized. So we are talking about ICC's decision. Then we are talking about the members not being too pleased about it. Then the next edition, you will still be criticized. So maybe C can follow E, right? So now what are we left with? We are left with A. So can C, now C will follow A, but we are talking about the decision in the next edition. So what is the decision in the next edition? Now here in E we said members were not too thrilled. A says in a bid to placate the associate members. So in a bid to associate the placate the associate. What does placate mean? It could be pacify. So to pacify these members, BCCI took a decision. They increased the number of participating teams. Right? So if you look at the logic, A should come after E. And then comes C, that whether you increase the number of teams or restrict them, you'll still be criticized. So we can say that, okay, D, E, A, C is the logical order, followed by B. right? So our answer then is D, C. Now, if you see, what are we doing? We are going into the strategy of solving these. Now, practicing the strategy of solving this is also important for questions where these options will not be provided. Suppose the options are not provided, what do? You have to go into each and every statement and figure out what comes first and what follows. Right? So this is what we are doing here. Whether your options are given or not, we are still doing that so that we get used to the logical thinking. If you are lucky, you get your options. If you're not lucky, you don't get your options. If you don't have options given to you, you can still solve the questions. And I am Indore will give you some questions with options, some without options. So you have to practice to solve questions even if your options are not given to you. So this one is now clear? Any confusion? So what did we have? We had a problem. We figured out what can go together. So D and E clearly went together. Now there was C talked about you are criticized even if you do it or don't. And E talks about members not being thrilled. So to pacify the members, ICC took a decision. But even then there was criticism. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. So that gives us a clue that something has been done. Right? So this comes after A. Okay, let's look at the next one. Okay, luckily these are shorter sentences. So both of you can go through these quickly and figure out what the answer can be. But you should have a reason for choosing the order.
It's in correct order.
It is in the correct order. Are you sure?
A, B, C, D, E.
A, B, C, D, E. Okay. Avni, can you explain?
A can be the only introductory sentence,
Hmm.
and then
It introduces what the unit is. Okay.
and C and D are mandatory pairs.
C and D are mandatory pairs. It unfolds two sections. Climate change, how to make sense of it all, and natural resources, how to share. Correct?
And in B, their new publication, so environment education unit center. So B comes after A. We are left with E, so E is the concluding sentence.
Correct. Okay, so now we come to number 6. Again, you have 5 options.
A is the introductory.
A is the introduction. Okay. It introduces the rock garden. So what comes after that?
C.
Hmm? The garden is 30 meters long. So this is a general description. Yeah, could be the second one. So what will come after C?
E,
Hmm?
then B, E, B.
E. E will come third.
E and B are mandatory pairs.
What is the order?
E first, then B.
D
B.
first, because it talks about the rocks. Yeah. So D will come fourth and B will come last. Are you sure?
No, ma'am. E, then B.
So we have A. After A comes
Hmm.
C. After
Hmm.
C comes E. There are no trees, just irregular shaped rocks. Yeah. And what is left? We have B and
B.
D.
First
So
B.
first B. The shaped rocks of various sizes, some arranged by gravel sand that is raked every day. The rocks of various sizes are arranged on small white pebbles of 5 groups, each comprising 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 2 and 3 rocks. The garden contains 15 rocks arranged on the surface of white pebbles in such a manner that visitors can see only 14 of them at once, whichever angle. Okay, so yes, this is talking about the arrangement and then how the visitors can see them. So this is your answer then? Shashwat, you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay, let's look at this one. It begins with they gathered together. Something should be before it. So it's talking about a flower sermon. Yeah. So what is the main topic of this sentence? Something that introduces the topic should be your first sentence. Yeah. So
Word
what introduces? Yes, Shashwat?
D.
D introduces. Avni, what do you think? D introduces. So D comes first. Origin of Zen Buddhism is ascribed to the flower sermon, the earliest source which comes from the 14th century. Yeah. Okay. What comes after D then? Something which goes a little specific but is not very specific. Because if you look at the,
It is said that Gautam Buddha gathered.
yeah, it is said that Gautam Buddha gathered his disciples one day for a dharma talk.
B and A. After B, A.
Hmm.
When they gathered together.
After BA, when they gathered together. So they refers to the disciples. Okay. This could be number 3. So what comes after that?
E.
E. Why not C?
Because several of his disciples tried to interpret what this meant,
Hmm.
the flower. So in C,
Oh, so it says one of Buddha's disciples silently gazed at the flower.
Hmm.
So the flower means the flower should have come before, right? So we have E coming first and C coming last. So our order is D, B, A, then we come to E, right? E and C. So beginning with B, anyway, we have only one option beginning with B, right? So even if your options are not given, becomes easy now. So if your options are not given, it is not like you can't solve the jumble. You can still solve the jumble with your strategies, right? Okay, we'll do another one. So look at the key themes of each sentence. A says post-election crisis in Kenya remains unresolved. B says the damage being done to the country's economy is severe. Tourism, horticulture, and other industries that depend on trade beyond the Kenyan border are reeling. Yeah, so there is a damage done. So post-election crisis is leading to the damage, we can say so. Okay, these may go together. Many countries responded providing essential humanitarian assistance. So now if you look at E, the international community was urged to help. So international community was urged to help. Many countries responded. This can form a mandatory pay. So E and C go together in this order. Yeah. Now A and B go together. Now what are we left with? Thousands of livelihoods along with investments through the region are threatened and collapsing. And as the situation escalated with murders, etc. So we are left with D. Where does D go in? D can be a result of the damage done. So we can say that D can come in after B. So what is your introduction then? A, B, and D go together in this order. And C, E and C go together in this order. Now, what is introducing the topic? A is, right?
A.
Now, all of them are beginning with A. So, nothing to eliminate. But we can say that A and B go together. Now, A and B comes here. We can eliminate A and C. Options A and C eliminated. So, now what do we see? C and E do go together, but not in this order. So our only option is D. So what did we do? We first formed mandatory pairs, linked ideas together. Then once the mandatory pairs were formed, we figured what now all of them begin with A. So obviously A is our introductory sentence. And then you go on to what comes after. Two options with B coming after A. So we look at the other, and here A, B and D we already know comes together. So anything with D not coming after B will not be your answer. Correct? Okay. So this was our practice for parajumbles. Are they easy now? Not so difficult? Shashwat? Easy to handle?
Yes, ma'am.
Now remember, you will be getting about at least 5 parajumbles in your IPMAT. So now if you think that it's taking too much of time, skip, move on. Right? Never get stuck on a question. Okay, do we still have some time? We have about 5 minutes. Do you want to go back to a few of the para completion ones? Or do you want to discuss your problems? Yes, Shashwat? Any specific problems that you have come up with? Not really? Okay, 1 minute. Okay, I think we will do a couple of the questions which did not have options given to you at all. Yeah. So these are some of the questions which don't have options given to you. So you have to use your strategies to figure out the answer. So these are the, in IPMAT, they call it theta questions, where no options given, you have to write your own answer. Yeah. Now remember, whether it is theta questions or options given to you, the marking scheme is the same. +4, -1. And you don't want to lose a point. Okay. So let's look at this question and see if we can answer it. Can you figure out something?
Ma'am, 2 is the introductory sentence.
2 is the introductory sentence according to you. Okay, let's see. Let's say 2 is the introductory sentence. Cardiac diseases causes sudden death in otherwise healthy young athletes and affects about 1 in 500 people overall. Could be what does it connect to?
Ma'am, 5 can also be the first introductory sentence.
In results announced in Nature this week, scientists fixed a mutation that thickens the heart muscle, a condition called hypertrophic cardio. So this is more like they are coming up with an explanation, or this is there should be something before this. In results announced in Nature this week, fixed a mutation that thickens the heart muscle. Can that be introductory sentence? Okay, so what did you do first? Did you read all of them? Could you link any ideas together? Okay, let's look at this one.
4 and 3.
4 and 3 can go together in what order?
First 4, then 3.
First 4, then 3. Okay. 4 and 3 will form a mandatory pair. Right? Now it says it is caused by a mutation in a particular gene, and a child will suffer from the condition even if it inherits only one copy of the mutated gene. So what is this it referring to?
A hypertrophic cardiopathy.
Right? So a condition called this. So that means we have 4, 3 and 5 coming before it. So 5 cannot be our introductory sentence. So 5, 4, 3. Now, is there anything that can come between? Now, the cardiac disease causes sudden death in otherwise healthy young athletes and affects about 1 in 500 overall. The cardiac disease, what does the cardiac disease refer to?
That condition.
The condition. So now 2 comes in between.
So
Right?
1 is the
So what is
introductory.
left? 1 is your introductory sentence then. Scientists have for the first time managed to edit genes in human embryo to repair a genetic mutation. Yeah, here they are introducing the mutation, fueling hopes that such procedures may one day be available outside laboratory conditions. Yeah, and then in results announced, scientists fixed a mutation that thickens the heart muscle. So 5 will come after 1. Right? So even if you are not sure about the introduction, just connecting ideas gets us to the answer. Shashwat, what do you think? So our options are not given, but we have still been able to figure out what the answer is. So we have to fit in the ideas in a proper logical order. Okay, let's look at another one. You also know options have been given. We have to figure out. Now here the process of handing down implies not a pervasive transfer, but some contestation in defining what exactly is to be handed down. So what has to be handed down? This can be introduction. Something has to be linked to this. Whether Western scholars have worked on the Indian past, wherever Western scholars have worked on the Indian past, the selection is even more apparent, and the inventing of a tradition must be more recognizable. Western scholars have worked on the Indian past. The selection is even more apparent. So the selection should be mentioned before this. right? So this cannot be introduction. Every generation selects what it requires from the past and makes its innovations, some more than the others. So this is talking about selecting something. It is now a truism to say that traditions are not handed down unchanged but are invented. So this should be, say, linked to something related to handing down or innovation. It has both. Are not just handing down in unchanged but invented. Just as life has death as its opposite, so is tradition by default the opposite of innovation. So tradition, opposite of innovation. This is getting a little complicated, right? So which is the most general statement?
5.
5.
5 is the most general statement. So we can take 5 as the introduction, if nothing else. So just as life has death, opposite tradition by default is the opposite of innovation. So what can come after this? Or let's see
4.
what else can be linked? 4 can come after 5. It is now a truism to say that traditions are not handed down, unchanged, but are invented. Yeah, 4 can follow 5. That is like not very specific, but going towards specific. Okay, so are not handed down unchanged, but are invented. What can come after 4?
3.
Hmm?
3 or 1. 3.
3 or 1. Now here, what is 4 talking about? It is not a truism to say that traditions are not handed down unchanged, but are invented. So if we have say
3.
a debate between 3 and 4, let's see what comes after 4. What fits in? The process of handing down implies not a passive transfer, but some contestation in defining exactly what is handed down. It's talking about something being handed down. Now let's look at 3. Every generation selects what it requires from the past. Selects what it requires from the past and makes it innovations, some more than others. Now this is more about selecting, right? So will 3 come after 4 or 1 would be better suited? Process of handing down implies not a passive transfer, but some contestation in defining what has to be handed down. So this hasn't come to selection. It is just about what has to be handed down. So I think this should be better suited to come after 4. Yeah. Okay. So it is talking about what has to be handed down. What can come after 1 then? So what 3 can come after that. Let's look at 2. Now 2 could be better suited as a, say, conclusion, right? What else do we have? Done. 4, 5, 4, 1, 3, 2. So once you have selected, what do you do?
Read.
Read it in that order. So if we read it in this order, does it make sense? Just as life has death as its opposite, so is tradition by default the opposite of innovation. The process of, It is now a truism to say that traditions are not handed down unchanged but are invented. That brings in the innovation. The process of handing down implies not a passive transfer, but some contestation in defining what exactly is to be handed down. Make sense? Okay, then we come to 3. Every generation selects what it requires from the past and makes its innovations, some more than the others. Fits in perfectly. Wherever Western scholars have worked on the Indian past, the selection is even more apparent. So here if we see, every generation selects and then 2, this becomes a mandatory pair. But this is talking about selection, and here selection becomes even more apparent. And the inventing of a tradition much more recognizable. So that's your answer. Avni seems to be bored now. No? Do you want to do one more, or should we stop here? You're still undecided whether to say yes or no. Okay, fine. We'll stop here. So this was our last topic that I had to take. So far, what all did we do? We began with grammar. Then you went on to vocabulary with Deepshika ma'am. Yeah. You did, so in vocabulary section, what did you do?
Antonyms, synonyms.
Antonyms, synonyms, homonyms.
Yeah.
Idioms. Then you did analogies, which is also related to vocabulary. What else was related to vocabulary?
Possessive words, contractions.
Yeah, possessive words, contractions. So what was the exercises that were related to vocabulary? Analogies, meanings and of sentences in meanings of words and phrases in comprehension, and most importantly, fill in the blanks, completing sentence completion. Yeah. So you know how vocabulary is important. You'll have at least about 5 questions in sentence completion, about 4 to 5 questions where you would be requiring knowledge of synonyms, antonyms, and about 2 to 3 questions on analogies. If you're doing Rohtak, then there will be more questions on analogies and synonyms, and direct questions on synonyms, antonyms, the meanings of idioms. So vocabulary, idioms play a very important part. Without that, you will not be able to answer about 10 to 15 questions out of the 40 that you're going to get. So Avni, you still have time. You have another year to build up on your vocabulary. Yeah. And we count on you that till the time you come to the 12th, or till you complete the 12th, you will be well prepared. Yeah. And Shashwat, you still have to build up on your vocabulary. What is the second most important thing? So you will get around another 5 to 6 questions on grammar. So a strong base on grammar, you know that those 5 to 6 questions you will get correct. So there's no way you can go wrong with your idioms, grammar, analogies. Right? Fill in the blanks. You may have doubt on some questions where maybe you don't know the words, but still you can do them using your strategies. And then when you come to comprehension, it's all about critical thinking, analyzing. So more or less your entire exam is about critical analysis of your questions. Yeah. So now when you come to vocabulary, as I said, it's not really possible to remember every word you learn. So what do?
Break it down and
Break it down. So you're going to work on the prefixes, suffixes, root words. Yeah. And what else? Connotations of the words. Tone, whether you need a positive tone or a negative tone. So basically in your entire exam, what does it all boil down to? Elimination. So working on your strategies to eliminate the wrong answer, that is the key to getting as many questions correct as possible. Yeah. So it's workable. Not something to be scared of. Right? So first and foremost, you have to be confident. If you're confident that yes, I can crack it, you'll surely crack it. Right? Okay. Okay then. So this is the concluding session of this year's course. Yeah. So Avni, we will see you again to help you prepare even better. So in the 12th, when you are coming in, one thing you have to make sure that even if you are repeating the same things, it's better for you. So don't miss. So anyway, whatever we have done in the beginning, say grammar, do you remember everything? No. So you will need to do it again. Right? So when we come back with the course when you are in the 12th, make sure you attend each and every session and take each and every class test. Have you people taken any class tests so far?
Maths I've taken, English not done.
Not taken. Okay. Now remember one thing, maths and English are equally important. If you think that okay, English to ho jayega, you're going to lose out. Right? So you have to give equal importance. Like people prepare for JE, they give equal importance to all the subjects because they're all important. Similarly here, this is on the same war footing as JE. If you prepare on the same war footing, a good admit is absolutely there. You will get. And your main focus is IM Indore. Right? Okay then, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
Shashwat, we'll see you after your board exams.
Yes.
Yeah. And Avneet, keep practicing.
Yeah.
And what are you going to practice most? You have to make it a habit.
Vocabulary.
Vocabulary. Yeah, vocabulary and grammar. So whatever you read, look at the sentence structure. Look at what the conclusion is. So everything is going to help. Anything you are going to read, break it up into paragraphs and see if the flow is there. What makes the flow? So unconsciously, you are working on your strategies. Right? So keep reading and keep building up your vocabulary. Okay then, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And all the best for your exams coming up. So Shashwat, all the best for your board exams.
Thank you, ma'am.
And yes, board exam marks are very important. You have to remember that. Yeah. ultimately, even after this, about say in Rohtak, Ranchi, all these have about 30% weightage for board exams. So do them well, and we'll see you in April again. Thank you.